You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
And look who's here.
Look who's here. There you go. Hi, Dana.
You made it.
Sorry for about that. I just was dealing with some stuff here and having.
Oh, no problem.
You can hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. We are live, just so you know.
Okay, good stuff.
We are live. And normally the show shuts down in 15 minutes, but we can extend that until just shortly before 10 my time, which would be 7 your time, because there's another broadcast that follows me.
All right. Well, yeah, 15 sounds good too. I'm kind of tired today. It's been a long day. I've been doing a lot of media and a lot of talking to a lot of people.
Yeah, imagine.
But it's been really good. It's been a very positive day.
Well, we're really grateful that you had made time for us tonight too, because we've been watching you all day, being on that. And congratulations! What a huge win for the whole community, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Here, I'm just gonna set up my camera a little better here. There we go. Yeah, it's really good. It's very good news, and was pretty unexpected how it all played out. This committee was supposed to hear us back in September, and then that got delayed, and then it was supposed to be in December, and that got delayed, and each time it was a different three councillors that get randomly chosen to be the three that they do all the hearings that week or that month, I guess, or whatever. And most of these kind of hearings are about like Airbnbs that aren't following the rules or something, right? But we happened to get the two of the three councillors who were probably the only two on city council. Maybe there's one other who might have voted this way too, but it's definitely like a minority of councillors, but they got the majority on this committee and they did what they thought was right. And it's a big win, not just for us, but for, I hope, the whole psychedelic movement, not just in Vancouver, but everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, they're always just showing a picture of one in Toronto that he was, across from the other day. But this is huge. So is this affecting, so this is within Vancouver. So say anybody outside Vancouver, do you think that they should attempt this?
All this decision affects right now is just the license for R1 location.
Right.
It doesn't mean that other people or even our other locations can now apply for a business license. Not yet anyways, right? It's just purely, we had a license to begin with, which we got as a gifts and novelty shop. And then the chief license inspector said, you have done gross misconduct. You lied to me. I thought you were just doing gifts and novelties. Turns out you're selling all these illegal drugs. So I'm taking away your license for gross misconduct. And these three city councilors, after hearing from our lawyers and hearing from me, they said, we don't feel this was gross misconduct. The category gifts and novelties seems like the best category for this to go in of all the categories they are. And we think these could be a valuable service. And so we are ordering the chief license inspector, as is within their power. They can either agree with them, they could disagree with them and give us the license back, or they can give it back with conditions. So what they ordered the chief license inspector to reinstate our license and to make it as like entheogens, including mushrooms, LSD, and DMT. And so, I believe that the chief license inspector has the chance to get a judicial review if they want to go to court and challenge this decision of the councillors. And we already have a judicial review going of their decision to take it away from us, because aside from this hearing, we're also in court. But I guess that court case is moot. But our lawyer, Jack Lloyd, he believes that we would win in court, and it would be like a 2-year process. And in that time, we would have our license anyways. But what the next step now is that the same city councilors who said that we should have our license reinstated, they've said at the next city council meeting, we're going to introduce a motion to have the city start the process of figuring out how to license all places like this. And so that would be the next step, right? For other ones to get licenses and for it to be something you can apply for, this committee couldn't do that by themselves. It'll take the whole city council.
It's safe access, It's safe access. And with the decriminalization of all small amounts of drugs, that's the biggest thing with this legislation. It's great to have it, but there's no safe access still for anything. But at least your store has safe access for LSD, for DMT, for the psilocybin, right? It's too bad that you couldn't add the cocaine and meth and all the other things that they need to have safe access for. Period.
Well, I think, it's interesting that, I mean, if DULF, if the Drug User Liberation Front that got raided and shut down last year, if they'd had a business license in advance somehow, then having it taken away, you can go appeal. If you never get one, then you don't have the opportunities to just sort of appeal the decision to take it away. Right. But because we were, and we never got one with the cannabis dispensaries, and I think probably 99% of other mushroom dispensaries in the city never got a license, and we normally would never get one. But this time I thought, well, let's get one and see how that plays out, and make the effort in advance to get one in there. And it's worked out really well, and everything kind of fell into place perfectly in terms of the right city councilors and the right timing and the fact that we got a license, and everything has come together really perfectly just for this to happen in this way.
And hand in hand drug testing too. Right? You got your drug testing, then you also got the the cafe and the mushrooms. It all kind of goes hand in hand with safe access.
Yeah, and we just opened the Get Your Drugs Tested Center in December, just after the raid, right next to this Broadway location. So they're right next door to each other. And that location of Get Your Drugs Tested is being funded entirely by the mushroom dispensary right next door. And so to me, it's a very symbiotic relationship. We're able to fund something that doesn't make any money. Maybe it brings people down there to the Get Your Drugs Tested who are interested in buying some of the things we have with the dispensary. But really, it's to me, they both serve the community in different ways. And when people say safe supply, normally they mean safe supply of opioids and the drugs that can potentially kill you. And I totally support access to that. But like you're saying, we also need a safe supply and an understandable supply, or a trustworthy supply of psychedelics and mushrooms and LSD and these kind of things. And when they come and shop with us, we have flyers on how to use it properly, and our staff can guide you on responsible decisions and how to get the most benefit and the least risk out of it. And I hope I think we've cracked the door open, but I really want this to be not just for us, but for we're the first, but hopefully not the last. There should be many more able to get this, but it's going to take a while.
Right, there was times when LSD wasn't safe. There was people that would take LSD and go on bad trips and never come back either. So again, having safe access to a safe supply of LSD and DMT and MDMA and all of those other drugs that what I mean. It's super, because those are the drugs that the kids are trying on the streets, right? And the ecstasy and all these the psychedelics, mushrooms, and if they're getting them, there's still access to the street laced with fentanyl, who knows, right? What it could be laced in them. At least when they're coming to your store, they're safe. They're not laced.
And we do test a lot of MDMA and MDA and cocaine and whatnot at our Get Your Drugs Tested. And for by and large, most of the MDMA, like some of it does have fentanyl in it. It's around less than 1%, but even 1% is too many percent, right? And often people also, maybe it's not fentanyl, but they're just not getting what they paid for, or it's not what they expect, or they think it's MDMA, but it's really MDA, which is not going to kill you, but it's not the same experience either, and it's not what you're looking for. And so, there's a lot of factors there. And we've become the busiest drug-free street drug analysis center in the world. We passed 60,000 tests a couple of months ago. We're on our way to 70,000, 75,000 over the coming months. And we get nothing from the government. It's all funded by our cannabis dispensary and our mushroom dispensary revenue. So I'm very proud of that program, and I'm glad it's going to be able to continue.
Has anybody reached out to you in order to maybe expand that program, the drug testing program, to put it in other communities?
People have offered. The challenge is the money, right? Each of these FTIR machines, they cost about $65,000 to get a new machine, right? And so we've got like 5 of them now, but that's a substantial investment we had to put in to buy those things. And we'd actually just bought a couple of new ones, and we were just starting to pay those off when we got raided. So we wanted to pay those off in November. Now we're just finally getting them paid off now in March, right? That delayed everything, and the company that produces them has been coming after us for this money, and it's been a big challenge, right? But once you have the machine, then their only real cost is paying someone or having a volunteer to work the machine. It does take several weeks of training. You don't have to be a PhD or have any special credentials, but it does take several weeks of training to know how to use the machine properly and analyze things. But I would love to expand it to other cities. So far we've just got our other location in Vancouver. We're working on getting a mobile lab going, putting it into a truck and installing one into like the set of van we've got. And then we'll be able to take it to other places in Vancouver or the Lower Mainland, or tour across Canada, or tour around Vancouver, or tour around BC. And the province of British Columbia, they've got, I think, over 20 of these machines that they own, like between all the different health services, far more than we have, like 5 times or 6 times as many. But we're still doing 3/4 of all the, or 2/3 anyways, of all the drug testing in British Columbia is being done by us, because they don't really use their machines. They only have them available a few hours a day, a few days a week, or you drop your substances off at a drop-off point, then they'll test them every Thursday and get back to you. But if you drop it off on a Saturday, you got to wait 5 days. That's better than nothing, but it's not really what people need, right? And we're open, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week at our main location and by mail. So there's no real waiting. Maybe you got to wait for half an hour or an hour, but that's about it.
Like if you're doing a mobile setup, obviously it doesn't take very long to get the results.
The test takes about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, including the interaction with the client about what they've got. It depends on the test. Some take a little longer, some take a little less, but it's pretty reasonable, right? Most people who come to our spot get an answer quite quickly. There's only a delay if there's a lineup and more people are there than we can test efficiently. And you don't have to wait. You can drop it off and leave, and we will call you or email you with the results as well. So if you want to wait, you can, but you're welcome to leave, and we'll just call you when we have the results. A lot of folks don't wait. They just drop it off and go.
We have one of those machines here in Cranbrook. Anchors has one because they were
that's good.
Shambhala. So Shambhala donated the machine here to Anchors in Cranbrook. So again, I think Anchors is the only place in other than you out in Vancouver and the whole province that has one. And we get backlash. They get backlash on a daily basis from these rednecks out here that think that they're contributing to the drug addiction problem, and all they're doing is trying to save lives.
No, drug testing is very important. And of course, the reality is it'd be far better if the drugs were tested before they get sold and they were in a package that accurately represented the contents. And so really drug testing is kind of ridiculous to do it, but it's highly useful and very needed and incredibly important service. But ultimately, I'd love it if we could shut down, because people don't get their alcohol tested before they drink it, and they shouldn't have to get their drugs tested because they should be tested for them in advance, right? But that's a whole other thing, but that's coming too.
I mentioned that they should have stores just like we have cannabis stores. I honestly believe there should be stores with, that are safe access points. No, everywhere.
Well, and
it's not going away.
People will say, well, you want to legalize fentanyl and meth. And it's like, well, you don't need, prohibition has created those things. And we live in a society where you think about it, where it's harder to get opium or even heroin than it is to get fentanyl. And it's harder to get like coca leaf or coca tea or milder coca extracts than it is to get pure cocaine. And all these things could be available. But you think about caffeine and coffee, right? Like, you can go buy pure caffeine powder and inject it if you want to. You can snort pure caffeine powder. It's not against the law. But the vast majority of caffeine users choose not to do it like that, because we much prefer drinking coffee or energy drinks or colas or whatever. That's the way people choose to consume it. If cocaine was totally legal in all its forms, there would be less cocaine snorting and more people would take it the way we use caffeine in drinks and beverages and coca tea and extracts and chewing gum and things like that. And if opiates were totally legal, not everyone would start doing fentanyl. People would do less fentanyl. They would use opium tea and smoke opium, and some of it who need something stronger might use morphine and heroin. But the people tend towards the milder forms when given the option. And when prohibition is there, prohibition forces the supply into the most potent and often the most risky forms of use, right? And so you don't need to ban things to make people not want to do them. You just need to provide safer options for people, and that's really the way the vast majority of users. And if somebody really needs fentanyl, they should be able to get fentanyl in a safe and reliable way. But prohibition pushes people towards these things in ways that they wouldn't normally seek it otherwise.
I think at this point in time, they should get a prescription from their doctor and should be able to walk into a pharmacy and get it.
Although that's true, but also for some, we also remember how resistant doctors were to cannabis prescriptions as well. And although I agree with that, there's also the challenge that for some things, doctors don't always want to be the gatekeepers for this stuff either, right? So, but I would think, for the stronger substances, I do agree there should be some limits. Just like we don't sell, injectable alcohol in the liquor store, and that'll get you really drunk really fast, really efficiently. So, okay, it's not against the law. If I want to buy Everclear and put it in a syringe and inject it, it is not a crime. It is not a crime, but nobody does that because nobody chooses to, right? And the same thing, you don't need to criminalize choices as long as they're safer up. But if alcohol was like $5,000 a bottle and I really needed it, then some people would inject it because it's a very small little bit, will have a very intense effect and get you what you need. And if that was the only option for alcoholics, some might do that, right? But no one needs to do that because of the way it's set up. So that's sort of my view on those things.
This machinery, this equipment, in order to do these drug tests, you mentioned it was like $65,000. There's a community near me where several people have went through a bunch of ODs going on. At one point, one guy said he watched 5 people go down within 5 minutes of each other.
That was
out in front of their community hub that they have there. That the community itself put a couple $1 million in this building in order to bring people in and deal with problems, but. Obviously there's some type of drug testing. I look at it as something that could help them. So is this something that if they could come up with the funds that they've already spent this couple million, they've gone to the federal and the provincial government asking them for a couple $1 million in order to try to set up something. So is this something that they could have just like if you've got it in a building beside, a store set up beside you, I assume it could be set up into some type of community hub?
Yeah, the machine itself is about the size of a bread box, right? It's not very big. And the sample you need is a very, very small sample. And these should be widely available. And although to us, 65 grand is a pretty big chunk of money.
Sure.
But to a health service or they spend millions of dollars. And this is not a big investment for them compared to the number of lives it's going to save. And even preventing overdoses, aside from the cost of human life, they're also very expensive to send emergency workers and fire trucks and paramedics all the time, and that costs a lot of money. So preventing these things happening, not only is it like saving lives, which really should be the main thing, it also saves a lot of money and time and effort on everybody's part as well. Because for each overdose death, a drug poisoning death, there's many others that had a poisoning and didn't die and got revived, and that's good. But it's also like it's still a big problem, obviously, right? They only count the deaths, but the number of people who come close to dying or who have. And often there's other health issues, and you're not always perfectly fine after a drug poisoning. Often there's brain damage or other problems associated with it. It's just not being dead is good, but it's not just not being dead. Like other issues, other things can still be problems.
And more health services are getting, and businesses are getting that Narcan out in order to help with the overdose. But that's us treating the symptom afterwards. I would think, by having public drug testing, that would help, cut all that down. That would be attacking the problem before it happens.
It would be a big part of the solution, obviously, and it's something that provinces can do, or cities can do, or anybody. It doesn't require. I mean, some of the laws require a federal change in the law, but there's a lot that other jurisdictions can do. Including things like licensing local shops as well. And like how, the city licensing us to be able to do this, if they've been able to give the Drug User Liberation Front a business license, that might have prevented them from getting raided or might have had an impact on that decision there because now you've got one jurisdiction supporting it, right? And so every jurisdiction has a role to play. And although people often say, well, it's a federal law, and then the federal government will say, well, it's an international treaty, we can't do anything. And everyone points to the higher level of government, but the reality is the change always comes from the bottom up. With cannabis, it was cities, Vancouver in America, it was San Francisco and Oakland and Denver and cities. And now it's happening with cities passing bylaws to decriminalize psychedelics and entheogenic plant medicines and things like that. happening now. Then after cities do it, then provinces and states, and American states like California and Colorado and whatever started passing these things. And then the federal government is the last stage. And after the federal government's, the treaties will be the very last thing to go after everybody's already ignoring it at the national level everywhere, right? And so change always comes from the bottom up, not the top down.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Now you're like you had to your business license thing again. You had to go get it reinstated because they took it away from you. Is there an expiry on these types of things? Like, will you have to reapply at some point?
Well, yeah, it's an annual thing, and so we opened at Broadway in February last year, and then in May the chief license inspector came by and said, "I am revoking your license for gross misconduct." We appealed that to the city, and we also appealed it for a judicial review, which is still going on. We're still in court, but the court case is kind of moot now, I guess. So, and then in September that review appeal with the city was supposed to happen with 3 councillors. It got delayed. In November, we got raided. In December, the hearing got delayed again, and then now it finally happened in March. And so now that was about the 2023 license, but now it applies to our 2024 license. The license is only good for a year, but I think my understanding of this decision from that is that would apply to future renewals of the license as well, right? But it really depends on how the chief license inspector responds. The rest of the city council, they're not all happy about this. You know, the mayor and a couple of the other city councilors from the ABC party, which is the dominant party and kind of the more right-wing police-friendly party, they put out statements saying we don't support this, but they can't overrule it. The whole council can't like take it away again. This decision is a decision that the council can't overrule, but the inspector could go to court and challenge us. There's a lot of things that can happen, but I'm pretty sure that our license there is secure at least for a couple of years, if not forever. And even if this council decides not to go further and start allowing other shops and creating this thing, we have an election in 2 years. And so, you know, there's quite possible that in that election, there could be a change in government and a new city council might look at things differently. So, you know, the battle is not over by any means, but we've got our foot in the door now, and that door, they can't close it. We've at least got ours, and I said hopefully many others will follow us through.
Yeah, and let's hope that you're able to provide some type of information to show the benefits of the business if it ever comes up in question again in licensing time.
Well, if they have a hearing at City Hall with this motion, I think people will be able to speak to it. At this hearing, the public couldn't speak. It was only the lawyers and anybody the council said could speak. So they let me speak, but they didn't have to let the public. But if I think this other motion about everything, the way that's structured is everybody, so we could have a lot of people there talking about it. We certainly have many members who have got some pretty severe ailments, you know, people with cerebral palsy and other spasmodic ailments who get really strong relief from microdosing mushrooms and larger doses of mushrooms. So, you know, if they want to hear from people in the community who benefit from this, you know, in 2019, the Melissa DeGenova from the last city council, Melissa DeGenova tried to put forward a motion. Like I announced I was going to open a mushroom dispensary. We didn't get open until 2020, but she brought forward a motion to city council trying to preemptively stop this from happening. It was basically to stop Dana from opening a mushroom dispensary motion, and it failed 6-2. So that council had the opportunity to like pass bylaws proactively to make it very difficult for someone like me to open, and they chose not to. And so that also it was a different city council, but it's all the city. I mean, you can't, you know, so the city had the chance to do something to stop us before we opened, and they chose not to. And that also to me is a sign that, you know, that we were right in opening and that we were going the right direction and kind of had some tacit support from City Hall. And so now, yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. But what's that?
Well, it's not like they don't know who you are. Like, I mean, anybody in City Council of Vancouver that's been there for the last little bit knows. Sure.
Yeah, they should all know who I am. I don't think I keep them up at nights, but yeah, they should all know who I am. I know who they are, right? And I mean, I'm pretty well known in the city, and they would have known this hearing was coming up, and they would have known what the makeup of this committee was, and so they had their chance in December if they had held the meeting then. And that was a majority of ABC members on the committee that was randomly chosen for that time. But the ABC canceled that hearing because they were trying to get rid of the Vancouver Parks Board, and that was happening the next day, and they didn't want to get tied up in this committee hearing or whatever, so they canceled it on us. And at the time, I was like, well, come on, let's have this hearing. We just got raided. What's going on? But it turned out very well. So it was their own choice. It was their own choice of the governing party not to hear it when they had a majority. And now the councils that were chosen, I think, made a very good decision. And I think it's going to lead to a lot of good things in the future.
Yeah.
It's nice to have some open-mindedness, like to not just like shut it right down and like not give it even an opportunity to see where it's going to lead, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they'd refused our license, we wouldn't have closed right away or anything like that, but it would have paved the way for them to seek an injunction or something as the next step. I mean, none of the other 20 or so mushroom dispensaries in the city have a business license either. None of them even ever tried to get one. And so, but we're kind of I'm the one that's in the news. I'm sort of the leader. I mean, it's not like everyone voted me to be leader or anything, but I'm the one that's in the news. I'm the first one to get going, and I'm kind of the spokesperson for it all. If they'd managed to shut me down and get an injunction, it would not have boded well for everybody else out there running these shops, right?
Yeah.
And I'm the mouthiest one. And
let's hope that it encourages others to maybe apply for a license themselves. Even though, like you said, it doesn't guarantee that people will get a license.
It's the first step, and it can't hurt for people to start asking and putting their name in the process. And it shows kind of good faith on our part that we're trying to comply and trying to get a permit and everything. And all things being equal, I'd rather have a permit than not. What's that?
Pay your permits, try and be like, upstanding citizen, pay what you have to pay. And
we really go above and beyond. And also, everybody who wants to buy from, it's always adults only, and everybody's got to sign a little form and that they're going to be responsible. They're not going to let their kids or pets have it. They're not going to drive or swim or climb and, et cetera, et cetera. Things you don't have to sign a form to buy alcohol. And you don't get, and there's not even really any warning labels on there. And our stuff, we do everything we can. And if they wanted us to do something different, as long as it was reasonable, we would do it differently. If they got a better warning label, well, we'll use that or whatever, right? I don't mind. But I think we do a pretty good job providing good information, of screening people, making sure they know what they're getting into, of only trying to, sell to people that understand what they're getting and how to use it responsibly and all of that. And so, but the motion they put forward is very good. It goes beyond just mushrooms and it mentions LSD and DMT and entheogens and everything. And so it's, as far as I know, this license for us, we're the first place in the world to have a city business license to sell mushrooms, LSD, and DMT and entheogens and things like that. So that's a wonderful situation.
Do that when they've got decriminalization for everything else. Like, it just seems a logical thing to do. Like, why not make it legitimate enough that people don't feel stigmatized? They can walk in there knowing that you've got a business, that you're educated enough to help them and guide them in the right direction, right?
And it is interesting, because you hear a lot of talk of drugs and legalizing drugs and drug addicts and drug users. Almost always when people say drugs, they really mean opioids, primarily a lot of the time, right? Drug users. And that they normally always means opioids. And opioids, I think, should be legal, but the regulation and risks and benefits of these things are all quite different. And the risks of using mushrooms and LSD, there are risks, but those risks are really infinitesimal, and especially infinitesimal compared to like opioids or alcohol. And so, we need to really broaden, we treat all these different drugs the same, all these things the same. The only difference really is what schedule they're in and how long of a jail sentence you get for possessing them or selling them. But they all need different kinds of rules and regulations and warning labels and information things and all this kind of stuff. They all need different rules, right?
I've got in my purse right now. You know what I mean? You can get, my doctor will sign me up for hydromorphine for my rheumatoid arthritis. So I'm rolling around with Dilaudid any day of the week, right? So that's legal for me to have that, but yet somebody and that's what gets some of these people on this whole train, right? They get prescribed from their doctor, even at a low milligram. I don't take them very rarely. Do I ever take them? I'm mindful enough to know that 72 hours is enough. Any more than that, you take the risk. How many people don't know that? How many people are unmindful? They take 2 weeks worth of, whatever the doctor's given them, and then the next thing you know, they're doing the withdrawal and the twitch, right? That's what it means.
Before I see we're getting a little low on time. Before we say goodbye, if you get an update on your, is there any update on your on the raids as far as where the court cases stand? Anything
Well,
moving
there's no court
on?
case. There's nothing, right? I mean, there's no conditions and no charges, so I've got no court case. And so they still potentially, they theoretically could still charge me at any point, but I don't think they're going to act this long afterwards. Like, it's very rare for them to raid you and then wait 8 months and then charge you, especially after you get a business license. Then they charge you. So although it's not impossible, I don't want to be cocky, knock on wood, but I would say it's highly, highly unlikely at this point that I'm going to be charged. So what my lawyer says will happen is there'll be several more months. And at some point this year, they're going to say, hey, we have all this stuff we seized, and we're going to destroy it all, but you can make claim to get it back or to deal with it. And then we'll be able to apply to at least try to get some things back or to make claims on it or argue about whether we should be allowed to have it or not. I'm not quite sure how that works, but there's a few things they took which definitely were not in there. Like, they seized a bunch of peyote, which I think they took by accident. I don't think they knew what it was, but at least I'd like to get the peyote back and a few other things like that. And maybe get the mushrooms back and the LSD back. That'd be great, obviously, right? But I don't know if that's, even if they don't charge me, I'm not sure if that's particularly likely, right? But it's going to be a few months. Our lawyer says don't go in there and start trying to claim certain things. You got to wait until they officially say in a few months, hopefully, we're not pressing any charges, and now we can talk about the stuff we seized and what we get back. They seized some other equipment and different things from us that wasn't really relevant. So, but in terms of charges, I got no charges. I got no conditions, and I don't really. It's like, it reminds me of the old days when they would bust bong shops and seed banks and stuff, and they hardly ever charged anybody. The process is the punishment. Them coming in and taking all your stuff and all your money, and that's the punishment, right? The court thing doesn't really matter.
Was it police or was it community safety unit that came in?
Well, it was both. The police came into all of our mushroom dispensary locations, because that's not, the community safety unit's only about cannabis. So they raided our 3 mushroom dispensaries, and that was the VPD, but they also raided one of our 2 cannabis dispensaries. Sorry, they raided our 3 mushroom dispensaries, and they raided one of our cannabis dispensaries, the one, the one on Hastings, sorry, the one on Hastings right next door to our mushroom shop. That was raided by the community safety unit. And I think part of that was because it's right next door, they might have thought we were storing things at the other location or tied together, which they're not, but they might have thought that. But interestingly and kind of chillingly, someone did an access to information request, and we got a bunch of their internal emails, and they were all congratulating themselves about their great work and their big haul from the raid on us. And it's like, it's not hard to get our stuff. They just walked in. But they sent in the emails to the community safety unit. They said, oh, and you're going to raid them on Thurlow in a few weeks, I hear. That'll be another great day. And Thurlow's our other dispensary location. Well, that was in November. So when we didn't see that until about a month ago, we were like, oh, they're coming back to Thurlow again. So we've been kind of trying to prepare for that to a certain extent, right? But we always kind of figured they were coming back at some point. But to have them emailing each other saying, oh, it's going to be a few weeks till you raid Thurlow. Yeah. We're like, oh, goodness gracious, right? We got to worry about that a little more strongly now. So, God. I mean, it's been like 6 months. Yeah. I guess 5 months since that happened. So it's in a few weeks. So I don't know how they decided, but I guess at some point they're going to be raiding us on Thurlow again, But I don't really expect another raid like on our mushroom dispensaries. I mean, I can't guarantee it, but having just got our business license, it would be a weird time for them to come back and hit us again, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah, sure.
What about the Coca Cafe? Have they any bothers with that or no?
Well, that location, that was our first location, and the city is also trying to take away our business license there, but they went to it a very different route, which is also confusing to me, but they went about it a different way. And so, but they renewed it there. We opened in 2020. We had, they all knew it was the Coca Leaf Cafe and Mushroom Dispensary. They renewed our license in 2021, 2022, and 2023. And then in 2023, at the end of the year, they said, no, we're not renewing it this time. Now you don't have one. And so we're in court also kind of getting a judicial review of that. But it wasn't the same thing. The chief license inspector didn't, I don't know. There's so many different ways things can go, but we're fine on East Hastings there too. We are in court over this, but I don't, and the Coca Leaf Cafe, but I don't know. I think this getting the license on Broadway, I think just overturned the whole plan they had of how to go after dispensaries. It's put a huge spanner in the works for them in terms of their plan, right? Because if they had turned us down for that, then the next step would have been to try to get an injunction of some kind. Injunctions are very hard to fight. And if they got an injunction and closed us down, I think it would have a chilling effect on a lot of other shops. Oh, they got Dana. Oh, I got to watch out now, right? And so, and kind of ease the way for them to start going after others, right? But this happening now, they can't do that anymore. It's going to be years of fighting. If they're ever able to overturn this, it's at least a couple of years away. And by then it could be a new city council with a different opinion in a couple of, I think Vancouver's already on board, but we're only getting more support and more awareness, right? So the numbers aren't going to be going down. The numbers are only going to go up for our side and for that.
Maybe so by then it will all be legalized and regulated, and we won't have to worry about it.
Well, I think these green counselors and Pete Fry, the one of them, I think they did the calculation and were like, are we going to lose any votes for supporting mushroom dispensaries and for supporting Dana? I don't think so. And could we gain some? Yeah, probably. So let's think, this is the way to go. And do we believe in this issue? Yeah, we do. So that's like a winning combination, right? So I think it's going to put the ABC into an uncomfortable position. And I think it was a good, aside from being the right thing to do, I think it was a politically astute move as well. Because I think that people in Vancouver will support this and will not support the crackdown on mushroom shops. That's nobody's calling for that except for the cop party, right? So it was a good move on every level. That they were smart to do this, and it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, good.
Powerful, right?
All right. Before we sign off, Dana, can I get you to tell everybody basically your website, anything like that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, mushroomdispensary.com is our main website. You can find me online at danalarsen.com. And I've actually started making YouTube videos with my YouTube name, Dank Arson. So you can look up that as well. I've been putting out a lot of cannabis. Dank Arson, where we burn the dank, right? So we burn down the dank. But I've been putting out some videos, a lot of cannabis, drug stuff, some other fun trivia things as well. And danalarsen.com, mushroomdispensary.com, and cannabisdispensary.ca. CocoLeafCafe.com, PotheadBooks.com, all great places to find my stuff. And GetYourDrugsTested.com, of course. How could I forget?
Yeah. GetYourDrugsTested.com. Super. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on.
I'm glad I managed to squeeze me in. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay, bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Night.
There we go. That was good. I'm glad he was able to get on, and we were able to talk to him. Probably what I'll do is I will probably do some editing and just make that section, put out a reel of our interview with him in a shorter version.
Awesome. No, it was glad he was able to figure out.
Yep. Well, I see the time is getting long. Newbie and the Doobie are coming on shortly on CBG TV. They're coming on at 10 o'clock. So we should get going. You can find Pace. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube and LinkedIn as well. And you can find us online, pace-online.ca, as well as paceradio.net. Thank you. Go to our sponsors, Legacy420.com, the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Limestone City Hydroponics.ca. Plus to you guys, our viewers, for tuning in, and for our guest tonight, Dana Larsen. Other than that, we'll see you all next week when we have a guest. And Daniel Bier is his name. He's a professor at Humber College in Toronto, so we'll be talking to him next week. Awesome. With that, thank you, and good night. Bye-bye.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network, here at paceradio.net.